My name is Monica Bada. I'm going to give this presentation in English, but I welcome questions in Norwegian afterwards. And I'm from Western Norway University of Applied Sciences. Anyone wants to guess? It doesn't roll that easily off the tongue, so I'm going to be using the abbreviation HOVL, which stands for Högskolan på Vestlandet. And before Christmas, I used to work at Högskolan i Bergen. So that's for those of you who are not following the latest merger news. The project we're working on is entitled Implementing Formative Assessment Through Digital Portfolios. And as you can see, we've already started sharing in any case, the news with the rest of the institution. This is a clip from our internal web pages. And these are some of the colleagues that are working with me on the project. The project is hosted by the English section at the Faculty of Education, so in teacher training. And this is another colleague of mine, Zoltan Varga, who is working with me at the English section. Behind him is Professor Simon Borg, who is our professor too at the institution. And on the very left is Morten Mørlandstø, who is the leader of the Center for New Media. These are our experts for digital tools in teaching, and they're assisting us with the digital applications. And there are other people who are participating in this project. I just want to briefly say, who are not pictured there. Another colleague from the English section, Sara Boym-Iversen. And in addition to us from HOVL, so we have another partner from Högskolan i Sørøst-Norge, Tony Berner, who is also working at the English section there on the institute. And it was important for us to get someone from another institution, so to make sure that whatever we come up with is not so narrowly focused on Högskolan i Bergen, but that it's flexible enough and can be applied and can be made relevant for others working in teacher training. And as I just said, we are also collaborating with the Center for New Media for digital support. 3 people there. Martin, who you've just seen, Xavier, who is the video expert, and Sigrun, who is more the expert on assessment and has also been working in schools for a long time. And we're also collaborating with Microsoft Education Norway, because we're using one of their programs. So they are providing us with training and assistance also along the way. Okay, and then we also have some advisory board members who are going to follow us along the way and have that role in evaluating the course. So Emil asked us to focus on the following questions. Hva ønsker prosjektet å oppnå pedagogisk merverdi? Hvordan går dere frem for å nå dette, inkludert valg av teknologi? Og hvordan dere tenkt til å videreføre dette etter prosjektslutt? So I'm going to try to say something about each of these. But before I do so, I would just give you a bit of a context, so you know about where these changes are going to be implemented. So as I said, this is going to be implemented in English courses, in teacher training, with undergraduates taking the first, or English 1, the first course in teacher training. And this English program consists of several modules, so they get a module in language, a module in literature, culture, and a module in English as a foreign language methodology, so fagdidaktikk. And at HOVL, this consists of, or the first 30 study points, consist of 2 15-credit courses. One is a language course, and I will just tell you a little bit about the assessment in those courses so you have a bit of a context. A language course consists of 3 obligatory assignments which they have to pass in order to be able to sit the final exam. And the final exam is portfolio assessment in this case. And the second course is a literature culture course where they also have 3 obligatory assignments, and there is a 6 hours written exam. At Högskolan i Sørøst-Norge, they, on the other hand, have only 1 course, 30 credits, and that is a combined language and literature culture course. They have a certain number of obligatory assignments. How many? students are told at the start of the term. And then there is a final exam, which is portfolio and oral exam, so combination of both. So that's the context we're working in and the context we're planning to trial these changes. So to go back to the first question, you've just seen what is it that we are trying to achieve. And I think our aims can be reduced to one main aim, and that is to improve the quality of our courses. And how should we go about doing that? And you know, one can understand quality in various ways. And I think when one thinks about quality in education, what can be considered central is students' learning, right? So how much do they learn? So you measure the quality of the courses by looking at how much students learn during the course. So having that as a focus led us to formative assessment. Okay? So coming to the question of why formative assessment, we know from an extensive body of research that formative assessment can have a powerful effect on student learning. I won't go into details here due to time limits. But then looking at our current practices, really formative assessment plays a marginal role in our courses. So this is really an area for improvement. Furthermore, if you look at the study barometer, which is becoming increasingly important, and the leadership, they have their eye on study barometer, it's brought up on various meetings and so on. The results reveal that students are generally overall, across institutions, but also at Högskolan i Bergen, dissatisfied with assessment practices and the quality and amount of feedback they receive. So if we want to listen to student voices, this is something we should do. We should look at. Yeah? So that is also part of the reason. We also can't neglect the fact that we are teachers ourselves, but we are educating future teachers. And formative assessment, or värdering för lärning, is important in primary schools as well. It's a national satsing in värdering för lärning. So we hope by modeling these practices, of course, we hope that the students will be able to apply some of that knowledge once they're out practicing in their future professions. And finally, research interests of the project members. That's, I guess, always the case. I won't go into that, but we have a project currently where we're looking at formative feedback. So then it was a natural step to extend it to formative assessment. What is formative assessment? Again, I won't go into this, and I guess I don't have to, given the audience here. But just the key idea here is that you collect evidence about learning, you interpret that evidence, and then you use that evidence to adjust teaching and learning to better meet student needs. So that's what this is about. And I find this model from Dylan Williams' book very useful. This is where he unpacks formative assessment. I think when you use assessment, brings about certain images or ideas. But this is what formative assessment is about. And it involves a lot of things, as you can see. Clarifying, sharing your learning objectives, eliciting evidence of learning, providing feedback, activating students as learning resources for one another, and activating students as owners of their own learning. Okay, so when you say you want to work on formative assessment, you have to address these issues, and we hope to do that. Okay, so it's not simply about feedback, there is more to it than that. And again, why does formative assessment play a marginal role? And I think we can go discussing that maybe even later on. But I wanted to just raise some practical issues, not because I think they're most important, but because here I think maybe the digital tools can be of assistance, right? So some of the things that are raised, some of the issues that are raised, time, of course. Most often, and there's been research on that conducted, where instructors report that formative assessment is just too time-consuming, right? It requires time. So can the use of digital tools help us with that, make formative assessment more time efficient? Class size, dealing with large class sizes. I would add here, this is taken from a paper by Diku et al. But I would add here also maybe contact with students. If I look at, our target group, which are teachers working in primary school, they have a daily contact with those pupils, right? So they're working in a slightly different context. They know them. They probably teach the same group year after year. We have a very scattered contact with our students. You see them maybe once a week for 2 hours in a group of 30 or more. Sometimes they're off for weeks in doing their teaching practice or something else, right? So there is really not so much of that physical contact with the students. So again, the hope is here that the technology can be of use. And then resources in terms of funding, personnel, technology. Do you have technology available? Do you know how to use it, and so on and so forth. So these are, I think, important considerations to take into account. So how are we planning to reach our aim? I would say the main pedagogical tool, but of course if you want to, address all of this, you're going to need a battery of pedagogical tools. It's not going to be one. But the main one we are going to be using is a learning portfolio. This is a collection of work compiled over a period of time. And the digital tool we are using is OneNote for Classroom. Can I just, with a quick show of hands, how many of you are familiar with OneNote? Yes, good. And how many are familiar with OneNote for Classroom? Okay, so OneNote for Classroom is slightly different from OneNote in that it has 3 areas. So it's designed for work in the classroom. It has a teacher's area where a teacher can post something and the students can see. It has a collaborative area, everyone can post and see. And each student has his or her notebook where that student can upload things. And that area, only that student and the teacher sees. Okay? So really, when I say portfolio, what I have in mind here specifically, or at the time I wrote the project description, we see how it develops, was a notebook in OneNote for Classroom. Okay? But that's the digital space where they can store everything they work on during the course, including our presentations with their notes, homework assignments, project assignments, obligatory assignments, you name it, right? Drafts of the obligatory assignments and so on and so forth. So there I really saw the potential because what we're working with, or have been working with by now as a learning platform, is It's Learning. And that is really a platform that is not so useful when you want to track students' progress in this way. So why OneNote for Classroom? There are several factors that played in when we considered this. Availability. Okay, so we are not digital experts, we are not ICT people. So, we approach this with from a very user role. So we are not out there to develop something new. We want to see what is out there that we can use, not spending too much time learning how to use it. Right? And I think these considerations are so important if you want to get the colleagues on board, because they're all so incredibly busy. So availability, does the institution have it? Yes, it's a part of Office 365. That I've contacted colleagues around Norway at other institutions, and they all have Office 365 available, so it's part of that package. None of them knew about OneNote being part of that package or what it is, but it's there, right? It's there and it's not used. So the institutions are paying for it and it's not used. It's very user-friendly. If you're familiar with Office packages, with Office programs, it has a very familiar interface. Quality support, again, being produced by a major technology company, has very good online support. Broad functionality, right? I use OneNote for personal purposes, so then it's just one step to use it in the classroom. So really, as I go around different conferences and so on, there are always so many, and also at the different competency programs at the institution, there are so many different small labs, things that can do this or that for feedback, or just yesterday I heard about something that students can use to explain things. Then you have this version, we need something that can do everything for us. We can't, juggle so many different digital tools. And then most important, suitability regarding our project teams. And that's the most important, though it comes last. And this is where I, at this point, and we have a training program with Microsoft scheduled next week, so they're coming to discuss this with us in further details. But this is my starting point in any case. Tracking the progress of individual students through students' notebooks. This is really the crucial aspect for me. So that students have that area where they can deposit their work, we have access to that area and follow up. So you can follow up without setting an assignment on its learning where they have to submit something, or setting up discussion boards where you can't sort of have to force them to post something. Facilitating different kind of student active assessment practices, including peer assessment, self-assessment. Sharing is much easier than it is in its learning. Individual and collective feedback in any kind of form, so any kind of file type you can upload to advanced learning, by tutors and peers, and then collaborative work in the shared workspace. So there are many benefits, the detailed ones I can go into, but I don't have time now. So this is where we hope OneNote can be of use to us. And how do we plan to share our results? Well, as Avi said at the beginning, I think it's very important to show examples. Again, coming from a subject specialist rather than an ICT specialist, and I've attended a number of these courses where we are told about different digital tools. There's usually some ICT expert coming and telling us about different possibilities, and then you're sent off to apply that. And often I feel people are sitting there, the way I feel my students sometimes sitting there and thinking, well, yeah, you tell me that about English grammar, but you're a specialist, so what am I supposed to do? I can't do the same thing as you as a specialist can do when I go to my classroom. And this is how we feel a bit like these ICT experts coming and showing us things, and then you go into the classroom, you pick up that smartboard pen and it doesn't write. Right? You didn't even pass that basic threshold. So I think it's, rather than just showing what something can do for you, you need to show examples that this is someone with very basic digital skills, like we are, is able to do this, right, within the limits of what we have available, both in terms of our competencies and resources. Right? So we want to develop a handbook for staff where we outline a sort of a proposed pedagogical model for implementing formative assessment into higher education courses by using OneNote for Classroom. In addition to that, we want to have a video documentary where we really want to talk more about our experiences rather than presenting the model itself. We have a handbook for that. So that's more like a marketing strategy we show. We talk about what we've done in a rather, up to half an hour. People don't have time to watch all the videos. And we want to have a project website which is going to follow the project. And then, of course, through a number of conference presentations and publications. Microsoft Education Norway is also interested in sharing our findings through their channels. They have also a large community. So those are the the way we plan to share the results. And now I was asked to also pose some questions to you, where I would like to get some input. Getting the community on board, I think it is important to think about. And we are thinking very much about this because Professor Simon Cork, who is part of the project, is an international expert who's working on design, implementation, evaluation of pre-service, in-service teacher training programs. So he's traveling around the world and evaluating different educational programs and courses. And really, how do you get colleagues on board, right? How do you get the others to, that's what we want, right? Don't want this to be just us doing that. How to get the whole institution and beyond that, other colleagues at other institutions to try to apply the same. So that's, I think, something one has to think about. Alternative digital tools, Canvas. As I say, we have It's Learning by now. I was unhappy about It's Learning, so I went to the Center for New Media, our digital experts, and they pointed me in the direction of OneNote. So that's how this whole thing started. But Canvas is coming from 2018. I don't know what Canvas can do. I'm not familiar with Canvas, but maybe it can do some of the things that OneNote can do. I just heard a talk day before yesterday at Læringsfestivalen about among other things, OneNote, and the presenter there said that Canvas and OneNote could be really nicely integrated. There is also Google Classroom, right? Whatever Microsoft has, Google has, so that's another possibility. Higher education institutions seem to go for Office 365, but a lot of the teaching institutions, so the lower levels, so primary schools, some use Google Classroom, some use OneNote Classroom. And then another, I think, which is probably of most interest to us, formative assessment in higher education. What do you see? So going back to that, right, model, what do you see as challenges, right? Where do you see potential if we are to address these issues in higher education? So those are some of the aspects. Yeah, hope to get feedback from you. Thank you.